might not have been able to join us live. So I'm going to introduce our wonderful guest today who agreed to come in and talk to us about being an illustrator. She also writes a really great blog, if you haven't seen that. And she is the wonderful, amazing Ed Hose. And I think some of you have done some of her coloring book pictures. I know the kids in our room right now have. And here's her totally off-the-wall coloring book that's available on Amazon. But Ed Hose also did my logo. So if you see my logo at all, my little avatar, got it on my phone, then she did that of me right there. And so that was really cool for her to specialize something like that for me. So I'm going to let Ed take over now, and I'm going to mute. Do know that you can ask questions during this chat, either in the question and answer feature you might see on your screen, or via Twitter with the hashtag EdHose, and I'll be monitoring Twitter and the question feature. So Ed, I'm going to let you take it away as our first graders come in, and I forgot to introduce myself, Nikki Robertson. We are from Elkmont High School, and we have third graders and first graders in here with us today. So Ed, I'm going to mute now and let you take over.
Okay. All right. Hi, guys. My name's Ed Hose, and I'm a girl, just to clarify that. If you have any questions at any time, just let me know. I guess I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. I have been a freelance illustrator for about 20 years, and freelance means that I'm my own boss. I go out and try and get jobs, or people hire me. I don't have an agent, or I don't work for a big company. I just work for myself. And when I started drawing, I started doing really small projects for people like friends and small bands and small little companies that I knew. And then that kind of snowballed. Like, I'd start really small, and then I drew one children's book, and then somebody else who needed a children's book saw that, and they hired me to do another children's book, and it just kind of picked up like that. So I have about 14 children's books out. This is one of them. It's called Fletcher Fly Flips and Flees Florida, and I'm working on the third book for that same author. And I also do children's menus like this, and then I do fine art that I sell in my gallery, and I have my coloring book. And I'm not sure exactly what to tell you guys. Do you have questions for me?
So with that children's menu, is that kind of like when they come into a restaurant with their parents and they give you something to color in the crayons?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so this is for a Argentinian restaurant. So usually the client will ask me something to make it really specific for whatever someone's hiring me for. So I wanted to capture kind of like the llamas and the idea of travel and the idea of the foods like the olives that are served in the restaurants. So everything I do is really specific to whatever client's needs. Let me grab my portfolio. Hold on just a second. So in addition to doing like corporate stuff, like business stuff, I also do portraits. And my portraits are called life sandwiches. And I call them that because they tell more about like the meat of a person's life than like just what they look like. So I do two kinds. I don't know if you can see these, but one, this is was commissioned by a husband for his wife who is a nursery school teacher, and she loved giraffes. So I drew this one for her, and she's the giraffe, and all of her students are drawn as like little animals. But I put all of their inside jokes in here, and like little, like she loves chapstick, and she's always wearing a beret, and she calls her husband the old guy, and he proposed using Cracker Jacks, so I have a Cracker Jack box there. So the portraits are very, very specific to whoever I'm drawing. They're not just like a photograph that someone paints. Although a lot of artists do that, that's not the kind of artwork that I do. Mine really tells more of the story about who you are. And that's something that I carry through in all of my artwork. For any sort of company, like I want things to be as specific as possible. Like I have like this was an invitation for a party about cakes, but it's very specific to that particular person. She loves Elvis, so I did a blue suede shoe cake, and she loves honey, and she loves fried chicken, so I did a fried chicken cake. So it's the kind of thing where I'm trying to think about the details of a person that you can't just capture by taking a picture, because there's no such thing as a fried chicken cake. Well, I mean, I could make a fried chicken cake, I'm sure, but it doesn't really exist. Let's see.
Fried chicken cake sounds good to us.
Yeah.
No? So would you say no?
And so I guess I'll tell you a little bit about how I work, like how I draw. I start every drawing with pencil. Everything's really, really messy and sketchy. This is how I start my drawings. And then I do pen and ink on them. So everything's then drawn with pen and ink. And you can see this is a good example of one that's not quite finished. I do 2 stages of black ink, and the pens I use, they're very specific pen. It's called a micron graphic pen, and I like them because they're like a marker, but they're really, 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 really thin lines. Like you can get really thin lines with them, and they're permanent, so they don't smear. And I've been using them for about 15 years. When I first started, do you have a question? Sure.
Yeah, let me ask you something real quick. That very first picture, the pencil drawing, you don't carry a piece of paper around that big with you everywhere you go, do you?
I do.
You do?
I even carry bigger paper. Yeah, this is a medium-sized drawing for me. And I don't think I have a piece. But usually I have 3 sizes of sketchbooks that I draw from. One is about 11 by 17, like about this size. And then you can see I have this is a little bit bigger. And then I have one that's even bigger. And the reason I draw so big is because I work digitally. I do all of the drawing by hand, and then I bring it into the computer. And I like that if I'm drawing something that only needs to be 8 by 10 or is smaller, that the lines kind of condense and they just look prettier when they're drawn bigger and then shrunk down. Everything looks just tighter and more vibrant. That's been my experience. So and also I can get more detail in. Like I love to draw really, really detailed things. You can see behind me, and this is the secret to why my coloring book is called the Totally Off the Wall Coloring Book, is I post up all of my originals. These are all my original drawings on the walls. But you can see how very detailed you can get when you're drawing big, and then when you shrink it down, it looks even more detailed. So this is an example of this dragon, which is also in my coloring book. It's called The Hungriest, Most Desperate Dragon in the World. And it's kind of a sad story because he's a fire-breathing dragon, and every time he goes to eat the ice cream, he can't get it because he keeps burning the ice cream away. So I drew that a little bigger, and then when I shrink it down, it just looks really, really colorful and really vibrant. So that's why I draw so big. So I draw with pen and ink, and then I take everything into the computer. I scan it in pieces, and then I piece it together once it's in the computer. and then I can show you kind of what that looks like. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, and go ahead and maximize it so that we're not seeing that psychedelic in the background.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I can't see you right at the minute, so tell me if this gets boring, but I wanted to show you a little bit about how the process that I work in. So this is a drawing called Embarrassing Robot Situation, and it's kind of about a bunch of robots, and this one robot had all its nuts and bolts fall out in front of all the other robots, which would be terribly embarrassing if you're a robot. And this is Photoshop that I'm working in, and the great thing about Photoshop is if you draw a contained space, like if you draw a bunch of lines, anything that's contained in one space you can fill in with a paint bucket. So even though these look really, really detailed, they're all kind of one space. So I can just drop in paint with my paint bucket, and I can switch colors anytime I want. Like if I want to do this robot green, and it's not perfect. Like there's areas that I need to go back and fix, but I'm not having to spend the time painting the way you would if you were painting by hand. So I want to show you a little bit how I make these look a little more realistic. So I have my drawings like this, and let's say I want to make this little robot back here, I want to make his eyes purple. Well, now I want to take a look at those eyes and see if I like them or not. And maybe I decide I don't like them, so I'll go and I'll change them to green. And that's another reason that I love working in Photoshop is I don't have to, like I haven't messed up my drawing. And that's something I believe very much as an artist. Like there's no mess ups. You know, everything that you do like is either a learning process or a happy accident, or there's like just a lot of possibilities in your drawing. So I always hear like young people, or even when I started out drawing, I would say things like, oh, I messed up. I don't really believe in messing up. You just kind of go a different direction with your drawing. So and with digital drawing, it's great because there really isn't any mess ups, because anything that you do, if you don't like it, you can undo it. So one of the ways that I make things kind of like come alive in the drawing after I've just dumped color in there is I will paint on it with a paintbrush tool. And you can do all sorts of different colors. I like to overlay the colors to kind of give more shape, and then kind of add like little highlights. So that kind of like, it's part just painting, but it's also part, you know, there's like a little bit of an artistry to it. And then there's a tool in Photoshop that I really love that's called the burn tool. And it just kind of like burns things a little darker. And I like that tool a lot because it just makes things pop a little bit. So that's how I kind of draw stuff. And this one was already drawn. So I also do like fun backgrounds. And this is what the original, like for the finished drawing looks like. So I will.
That's cool. We really like that. Now, I know that there are some questions. Danya has a question from her class. So, Danya, I'm going to let you unmute. And if you want to have a student come forward to ask a question, you can do that.
Go ahead.
Hi there.
Tell your name. My name is Juan, and my question is, what do you like to do besides drawing?
That's a great question. You know, I'm kind of known for loving to draw so much that I'm always drawing. But when I'm not drawing, I love to write, and I love to cook, and I love to like play with other people's skin. I don't know, that's gross, but I don't know. Like I like to like braid people. I don't know. Like I like to pretend I'm a doctor and read about medical stuff and then think I know everybody's medical problems. I really wanted to be a doctor, but I couldn't get into medical school, so I went to art school instead. But I still have that like a lot of medical stuff. So,
And
oh, I love
Tanya,
removing splinters. So if anybody has a splinter, that's my favorite thing to do is like remove somebody's splinter.
um, Danya, and that brings me, because Ed Hose is a friend of mine. I know you said you liked skin and you wanted to be a doctor. Can you tell them what you did for our friend Peggy when she was going through her cancer treatment and lost her hair? Can you talk about what you did for her?
Yes. Well, I've done a lot of fun art projects with Peggy when she's going through her cancer treatment. But one of my favorite things to do when she lost her hair was paint on her head. And so that was a little pastime that we had. And for Halloween, I painted like a kind of creepy face on the back of her head, which was really funny because when she was, you know, if you came up behind her, it looked like her face was behind her. So she had like two faces. And on New Year's Eve, I painted and glued little mirrors so that she looked like a crystal ball descending the stairs. That we did like a countdown. And for Christmas, I had painted her head like a big Christmas ornament. So I have a lot of friends who've gone through treatment like that, and I like to use my art to kind of make other people happy that way and take away some of the pain or sadness that comes along with being sick. So there's always a way to kind of make somebody smile with using art, and I always like to find that.
That's what I love about your art too, because it does make me smile. Let's see, Heather, does your class have any questions they would like to ask? If you'll unmute your mic and have a student come forward.
My name is James, and my question is, where do you get your ideas from?
That's also a great question. Well, a lot of times I work for the clients that I work for. They come to me and they tell me their ideas. So I'm drawing to just bring their idea to life. So if somebody comes to me and says, here's a good example. Hold on. If somebody comes to me and says, okay, this is a client that I had that needed a logo for a bar, like in a restaurant. So they needed a shark, and I think that the bar was called the Sandbar. So they wanted a shark leaning against a boat on a sandbar. So that wasn't my idea. That was the idea of the client, and that's pretty common for most of my drawings. But when I do get to draw, when I get to draw my own thing, I have two ways that I like to draw. One is something strikes me as funny or cute. These are my waffle ladies, and I was eating breakfast one day and I saw these four little ladies, and they all were like great friends, and they were laughing, and they had all ordered waffles with strawberries and whipped cream, and it came out at the table and it was just beautiful, and that really inspired me because I thought they were so adorable. The other thing I like to draw a lot is things like word plays and something that's funny. So my ideas come from conversations, and someone will say something that's funny, and I'll see it in my head, and I have to draw it. So that was a good question. Anybody else?
We have another question, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Hi, my name's Abby, and I have a question. What did it take to be an artist?
Let's see, what does it take to be an artist? Well, there's kind of a funny answer to that, which is if you want to be an artist, all you have to do is make art. And I believe that very much. So if you want to be an artist, you just make art. You just draw and see where it takes you. And the more you draw and the more you create or paint or whatever your art is, if you're a sculptor or a performance artist, if you just keep doing it, that's all it really takes to be an artist.
Great question. All right, we have a question here from Elkmont.
My name is Thea, and my question is, what makes illustrating so special to you?
What makes it so special to me?
Yes.
I love that question. I think because you can create something when you're drawing that you can't create in real life. Let me show you an example of something like let me see if you can see this. Hold on. So one of the things that I wanted to draw one day was a monkey with a little person riding on a corn dog. And that's something that you're not going to see in real life, but I wanted to make that as a gift for somebody whose favorite things are monkeys, corn dogs, and little people riding the monkeys. And that's not something you're going to see just walking down the street. And so with illustration, you can create any idea that you have, and I love that. So
that's great. That's so funny. We were all laughing when you were talking about the corn dog. So we have another question from Elkmont, and then if Jessica's class has a question, we'll want to get to them, and then just notify us if there's another class that wants to ask a question. So go ahead.
My name is Evan, and I have a question.
Okay.
Who inspired you to draw?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Well, there's a lot of answers to that because probably everybody I know inspires me. But I had some wonderful teachers growing up that inspired me, that kind of took me aside and taught me how to draw. They taught me in small ways. Like I had a puppeteer. I used to take puppetry classes. That's another hobby of mine. I love puppets. And he taught me one day how to draw an eyeball. And that's all he taught me to draw, was just an eyeball. But it had such an effect on me that I could create something out of nothing. You know, you just get this piece of paper and you have your pencil and you can make whatever you want to happen. And that inspired me. But then there's also famous artists that have been really special to me. One of them is an artist named Frida Kahlo, and she's a Mexican painter, and she was married to a muralist who did these amazing murals. And she was just kind of a weird, quirky, funny lady who overcame a lot of pain and a lot of suffering by using her art and exploring her own ideas, and that inspired me. And Shel Silverstein. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Shel Silverstein. We're gonna have to wrap up in just a minute. Jessica, one more chance. Did anyone from your class have a question?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
My name is Amy. My question is, how old were you when you started drawing?
Oh, that's a great question too. I think I've been drawing. My mom says that I was born with a pencil in my hand, that I was always drawing. But I remember drawing when I was a little girl, and I have two little boys who are in 1st grade and 3rd grade, and I draw with them now. So I remember drawing when I was their age also, so pretty much my whole life. But the older I get, the more I draw, because I do it now for work too. Does anybody else?
Awesome. And I think, Jessica, it looks like you had another student who wanted to ask a question.
My question is, can you make a dog?
Can I make a dog? Yes, absolutely. I don't have any dogs right here right now, but I do draw a lot of dogs. I draw them very like specific dogs for people. Like they'll hire me to draw a portrait of their dog, and pretty much I can't think of anything that I can't draw. I can tell you this, that sometimes it doesn't look that good, and that's something I would like to share with you about drawing, is going back to the idea that there's no mistakes. Sometimes I've been drawing, I've been working professionally for 20 years, but I still make things that aren't that, you know, not everything I make is something that somebody would really like, but I actually love that. Like, I love when I make something and it's a little weird, and this is just an example. These are some bracelet cuffs that I've been working on, and they turn into, let me show you. So I call them hero cuffs, and they are bracelets made from my illustration, and I call them hero cuffs because they kind of look like Wonder Woman cuffs a little bit. So I have these bracelets, and this is a llama, and it's riding a rocket, and it says unstoppable. But so I've been working on those, and I wanted to make an octopus, so I made this one, and it's really weird. That is just the weirdest octopus anyone's ever drawn, and I couldn't figure out why, and it was because I wasn't really looking at a picture of an octopus. So I drew another one, and this one looks more like an octopus. But you have to make your mistakes in order to get to a place that you're not making the mistake. So I always appreciate when I make something a little off or a little bit wrong, like it's just a stepping stone to get you to your next drawing. So never get frustrated when you draw something and it doesn't look right. A lot of people want to like crumble it up and say, oh, this sucks, I hate it, I did bad. But you know, you really just want to say, well, this is interesting. Look at this weird, interesting thing I drew, and then, you know, move on. But don't throw it out, because it's fun to look back on it.
That's great. I think one more question from Jessica, then we'll take one more question from Heather's class, one more from Danya, and then we have one more from us, and then we're going to let you get back to doing your drawings and running your store. So Jessica, I see you have a young man standing there ready to ask a question.
What inspired you to? Oh, my name's Lennon, and what inspired you to start drawing?
Well, I really realized that I could make a living doing something that I loved, and that was really important to me, to live a life that's called a seamless life, where there's no difference between work and play. A lot of people get up and they go to a 9-to-5 job every day, and I wanted to make sure that my 9-to-5 job was something that I really enjoyed doing and felt like I could make a difference with.
Perfect. Okay, Heather's class, did anyone have a last question from your class?
Yes, we have one more question.
Why is your drawing so creative?
Why are your drawings so creative?
Why are they so creative? Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think when I'm given a drawing project, I try and think about it in as many ways as possible. It's called brainstorming. I don't know if you've ever done that, where you sit down and you say, okay, I could do, how am I going to draw something, or how am I going to, in anything you do, you could do the same thing a million ways. If you're going to like make a sandwich, you could make a sandwich in 5,000 ways. You could put it use different breads, use different cheeses. There's like all sorts of different things you could do to make a sandwich. And drawing is that same way. So when I'm given a project, I try and think about all the different ways I could do it, and then I choose the one that I think answers the most questions or tells the best story. So I don't know if that's creative, but that's the process that I use. I try and tell the story or answer the question in a way that's interesting and conveys what a client's trying to ask me to do, or tells the story that I'm trying to share. Like, I'll go back to these waffle ladies. Like, I wanted to convey just like a giggly good time with these little old ladies. And I think by showing them all kind of like laughing on the peripheral, I did that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, that's one thing too I love about your art, is that it does tell a story, like the sunflower that fell in love with the fried egg.
Yes.
So
yeah.
That one's real interesting. Thank you very much, Heather, for that question. Danya, did you have one last question for Ed?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Kylie, and my question is, what college did you go to, and what kind of classes did you attend?
Oh, yeah, good question. I went to the Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, which is Temple University's art school. And when I first went, I wanted to be a performance artist, which is this like really avant-garde character kind of thing I wanted to do, which was I wanted to go to places and kind of dress in funny costumes and just perform on the streets. And then I realized that that's kind of a hard way to make a living. So I adjusted that to do what I had always done, which is illustration. I have always drawn like little doodles, and I realized there were some classes I could take in college that were like doodling, but they called the doodles that I always grew up doodling, they called that illustration. So I took a lot of illustration and a lot of graphic design classes, and that's how I learned to work digitally the way that I do. Before I went to college, I was just drawing with pen and paper and coloring with watercolors or colored pencils. It wasn't until I went to school and learned graphic design that I learned how to work in the style that I showed you on the computer. So those are good classes. But and also the school that I went to was a 4-year school, so I also had to take math classes and English classes and art history classes, and I loved all of that. And I think that it really teaches you to think like an artist when you're in an environment, when you go to an art school and you're taking classes like math. If you're thinking like an artist, suddenly math becomes very beautiful and becomes an art project in itself. So you start to see art in every possibility everywhere you go. And that's something I learned from school, I think. Yeah.
That's great. And I know, Ed, that one time I was on Twitter, and I have the picture of me you drew up on my Twitter, and one of your friends from 7th grade said, "Hey, did Ed Hose draw your picture?" So all the way from 7th grade, she still recognized your work.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, we're going to ask one last question, and then we're going to have to wrap up because these kids have lunch to get to, and I know you have your store to run. So we're going to ask our last question.
My name is Tyler Duck, and do you draw for cartoons on TV?
I don't draw for cartoons on TV, but I would love to. I would love to someday have my own cartoon. I'll show you real quickly. Like, I have a lot of characters that I like to draw, and lately I've been drawing a lot of these guys. And this is my mermaid and my janitor. And I think they're pretty funny characters because the mermaid is a maid, and the janitor is kind of like a minotaur, but he's also a janitor, and it's about how hard they work together. So I don't have cartoons on TV right now, but maybe someday. And then I'll come back and tell you all about that.
Definitely. We'll be looking for that. And can you show us really quick your website, how we get to it, so that if we want to know more or see some more of your art, that we know how to get to your website and see that art. And also tell us how to find you on Twitter as well.
Okay. My website is edhose.com. Can you see that? Did that come? Hold on. Let's see.
We see.
Okay, so yeah, my website is edhose.com, and from there you can get to my blog. Just hitting the blog button. I also have a portfolio on there that shows you all of my fine art and quirky doodles and all that kind of stuff. I was quickly looking to see. Oh, here's a dog. Somebody asked if I could draw a dog. Here's a Georgia Bulldog, and that has just a small sampling of some of the work that I have. And then I also have a shop that you can get to, and you can read a little bit about me and get my new coloring book, which is on Amazon. And on Twitter, I am edhose, and on Facebook, I am edhose illustration, and on Instagram, I am edhose. So I do all that kind of stuff, and I have loved your questions today. So, oops.
Lost your camera for a minute.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Well, we just can't thank you enough for taking time with all of us today. We had 5 other classes that weren't down here in the thumbnails that were watching with us and commenting on Twitter.
Okay,
so
great.
that's exciting. But thank you to Danya's class, Heather's class, and Jessica's class for joining us here today. We're going to stop the broadcast, but everyone, if you'll wave and tell Ed, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, and we're going to end the broadcast, and I will make sure to tweet out. Oh, and some of the kids are wanting to show their pictures.
Yeah, could you? I'd like to take a picture.
Oh, very cute. Did y'all want to? And so the class is showing off their different pictures that they did.
Oh, these are great.
Very cool.
So you can tag me on Facebook or Instagram.
We will do that.
Great, thank you.
So if their teachers want to take some pictures of their drawings and send them to you, they just say @edhose on Twitter or send them to you on Facebook, right?
Yep. And I'm making a little commercial for my coloring book, so they might show up on that commercial if you do that.
Oh, okay. Well, very cool. Then we'll make sure to get those out to you. Thank you again so much, and we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast.
Wonderful.
And everyone who joined us today, thank you so much for joining. I'll be tweeting out the link so that if a class missed this, you can share it with that class that missed it and learn from Ed Hose as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.